Have you ever wondered why some people seem to exert an almost magnetic influence over others, while you struggle to even control your own life? What if I told you that the secret to true power lies not in controlling others, but in mastering yourself first? But before we begin, please hit the like button and let me know where in the world you're watching from today. It's always fascinating seeing who's joining us from around the world. Society has fed us a compelling lie that focusing on yourself is somehow selfish, that true strength comes from constantly serving others and putting their needs before your own. This narrative is perhaps the greatest deception in the game of power. Has this ever happened to you? You exhaust yourself trying to please everyone, scatter your energy across countless opinions and distractions, only to wonder why you feel so powerless in your own life. The truth, as Machiavelli understood centuries ago, is that weakness is born from this very distraction. When you dilute your focus, spreading yourself thin across the needs and judgments of others, you diminish your own power. Each time you shift your attention outward rather than inward, you surrender a piece of your strength. What you're about to discover might surprise you. Self-focus isn't vanity or selfishness, it's strategy. It's the deliberate act of sharpening your mind into a weapon, transforming every flaw into armor, every scar into steel. The person who turns their gaze inward, who studies themselves with ruthless honesty, becomes untouchable. They develop a presence that others can sense but rarely understand. Think about it. How can you possibly command others if you cannot first command yourself? How can you influence the world if you remain a stranger to your own mind? The truth is, you can't. The individual who masters themselves needs no external validation, no permission, no applause to move through the world with purpose and power. Stay with me until the end, because this journey of self-focus is the foundation upon which all other forms of influence are built. It's about stripping away illusions, seeing yourself with perfect clarity, the habits that weaken you, the emotions that control you, the people who drain you. And instead of hiding from these truths, you learn to face them head-on. This is how the fearful become fearless, how the quiet become commanding, how the broken become unbreakable. When you train your weaknesses until they obey you, when you forge your flaws into strengths, you create an internal fortress that no external force can penetrate. The world is filled with those who try desperately to control others while their own lives crumble from within. They shout and demand respect, yet inside they're hollow, shattering at the slightest blow because they never took the time to forge themselves in silence. They posture and perform, demanding the world's attention, but they've never done the real work. The hidden, inner work that transforms an ordinary person into an unstoppable force. If you're committed to mastering yourself rather than being mastered by others, subscribe now. Each week, we explore the hidden principles of power that most will never understand. Join those who are building their internal fortress. Now, I want to go even deeper into this journey of self-mastery, because here's where the true revelations begin. When you command yourself completely, you eliminate the need for external validation entirely. This mindset shift creates a profound transformation that others can sense immediately. The person who has mastered themselves walks into a room and needs no introduction, no permission, no applause to make their presence felt. They radiate a quiet authority that commands respect without demanding it. Think of the last time you encountered someone with this quality. Did you notice how others naturally deferred to them? How conversations paused when they spoke? This isn't coincidence or charisma. It's the natural impact of someone who has first conquered themselves before attempting to influence others. But the path to this level of self-command requires something most aren't willing to face: absolute clarity about who you truly are. Self-focus strips away the illusions we build around ourselves, the comfortable lies we tell to soften our reality. When you stop chasing validation from others, something remarkable happens. The constant noise that clouds your judgment begins to fade, replaced by a crystal clarity that few ever experience. This clarity reveals uncomfortable truths. You begin to see the habits that quietly sabotage your potential, the procrastination disguised as planning, the comfort-seeking that masquerades as self-care, the avoidance dressed up as patience. You recognize the emotions that don't serve you but control you anyway, the fear that keeps you small, the anger that burns your energy, the jealousy that diverts your focus from your own path. Perhaps most importantly, you finally see the people in your life with perfect clarity, those who elevate you versus those who drain you, the relationships that energize you and those that deplete you, the connections that push you toward greatness and those that pull you toward mediocrity. This recognition isn't about judging others, it's about understanding the hidden dynamics that shape your decisions and your destiny. This awareness is the foundation of all power. It's the first domino that, once toppled, sets everything else in motion. Without it, you remain blind to the very forces controlling your life. With it, you gain the ability to reshape your reality from the inside out. The hidden truth most will never grasp is that this internal work, this ruthless self-examination, isn't a one-time event, but a daily practice, a continuous journey of self-discovery that never truly ends. Each layer you peel back reveals another beneath it, each revelation opening the door to deeper understanding. Write in the comments, "I see myself clearly now," if you've begun to recognize the habits, emotions, or relationships that may be holding you back from your true potential. This awareness is only the beginning of your transformation. Now comes the true test of character, what you do with the weaknesses you've discovered. Most people make a critical error here. They either deny their weaknesses exist, burying them beneath layers of excuses, or they obsessively try to hide them, terrified that others might see their vulnerabilities. Both approaches leave you permanently handicapped. The path of power demands something entirely different. Instead of running from your weaknesses, you must face them directly with unflinching honesty. You must train them, discipline them, and ultimately bend them to your will until they transform from liabilities into assets. This metamorphosis is where true strength emerges. Consider how a bodybuilder approaches a weak muscle group. They don't hide it or pretend it doesn't exist. They specifically target it, deliberately stressing it until it has no choice but to grow stronger. The same principle applies to every aspect of your character. Your fear of public speaking becomes the catalyst that drives you to become a masterful communicator. Your tendency toward procrastination becomes the battleground where you develop exceptional discipline. Your sensitivity to criticism becomes the foundation for unshakable confidence. This internal alchemy produces an outcome few ever experience, a state where nothing outside of you can truly move you. Think about the profound freedom in that revelation. When you've mastered what's inside, external circumstances lose their power over you. Criticism cannot shatter you, rejection cannot destroy you, even failure cannot stop you. You develop an internal stability that creates external invulnerability. The paradox that Machiavelli understood so clearly is that this journey inward is what ultimately gives you power in the outer world. While others remain fragile, blown about by every opinion and circumstance, you stand unmoved, a fixed point in a chaotic universe. Look around and you'll see the evidence everywhere. The world is filled with hollow figures trying desperately to control others while having no control over themselves. They project an image of strength through their position, their possessions, their social media presence, yet internally they're crumbling. Their happiness depends entirely on external validation. Their confidence relies completely on others' approval. Their worth is measured only by comparative status. These paper tigers appear formidable until pressure reveals their true nature. Watch what happens when they face real adversity. Criticism shatters them, obstacles defeat them, setbacks break them. A single blow exposes the truth that they never did the essential work of forging themselves in silence. The path I'm describing isn't easy. It requires confronting parts of yourself you've spent a lifetime avoiding. It demands the courage to see yourself clearly without the comfortable buffer of self-deception. Yet this challenge is precisely what makes the journey worthwhile, because what awaits on the other side is something few will ever experience: true power that comes from within. Write in the comments, "I forge my weaknesses into strengths," if you're ready to face your vulnerabilities directly instead of hiding from them. This internal work creates something remarkable, a quality that Machiavelli recognized as the ultimate expression of power: untouchability. Not physical invulnerability, but something far more profound. You become untouchable in spirit, in mindset, in character. Every flaw you once hid becomes a lesson that strengthens you. Every mistake transforms from a source of shame into fuel that propels you forward. Every rejection becomes data rather than devastation. This untouchability doesn't mean you never experience pain or difficulty. Rather, it means you've developed the capacity to transform these experiences into assets. The criticism that would once have destroyed you for days now becomes valuable feedback you can immediately leverage. The failure that would have convinced you to quit now becomes the precise insight you needed to break through. The betrayal that would have left you bitter now serves as the catalyst for deeper wisdom. This transformation doesn't happen accidentally. It emerges from a deliberate practice, the daily discipline of facing yourself honestly and doing the inner work others avoid. Behind the scenes of every truly powerful individual lies this hidden journey that most never witness. What appears as overnight success to others is actually the culmination of countless private battles fought in silence. If these principles of self-focus resonated with you, take a moment to hit the like button. It's a small action that signals you're someone who values depth over distraction, substance over noise. What I'm revealing is something Machiavelli understood centuries ago, yet remains revolutionary today. The fundamental law of power begins with self-mastery. You simply cannot influence the external world if you cannot first influence yourself. You cannot lead others if you cannot lead yourself. You cannot command respect if you have not first commanded your own impulses, emotions, and actions. This principle manifests in every domain of life. The business leader who cannot control their reactions under pressure cannot effectively guide an organization through crisis. The parent who hasn't mastered their own fears cannot raise fearless children. The artist who hasn't developed internal discipline cannot consistently produce meaningful work. The foundation must precede the structure, always. Yet there's an aspect of this journey that confuses many. True self-mastery often requires periods of strategic withdrawal. Society misinterprets this as weakness or avoidance, but nothing could be further from the truth. Isolation isn't retreat, it's training. Like a lion that hunts alone, strategic withdrawal allows you to sharpen your abilities away from the constant distractions and influences that pull you from your center. These periods of deliberate solitude serve a crucial purpose. They create the space needed for deep reflection, for rigorous self-examination, for the kind of focused development that simply isn't possible amid constant social stimulation. The most transformative insights rarely emerge in crowds. They come in moments of quiet contemplation, when you can hear your own thoughts clearly. Great leaders throughout history understood this rhythm of engagement and withdrawal. They knew when to step back, reassess, and rebuild before returning to the world with renewed clarity and purpose. This strategic isolation isn't about hiding. It's about preparation for more effective action. Write in the comments, "I withdraw to strengthen," if you recognize the value of strategic solitude in your own journey towards self-mastery. When you choose this path of self-focus, There's a revelation that often catches people off guard: the immediate resistance you'll face from others. The moment you begin prioritizing your own development, the world will push back against you. Friends will call you selfish. Family members will question your new boundaries. Colleagues will label you arrogant or difficult. This pushback isn't coincidental. It's inevitable. This resistance emerges because your decision to focus inward disrupts the established social dynamics. Your shift threatens the comfort of those around you who prefer the old, more malleable version of yourself. Their reaction isn't personal. It's a natural response to change. The breakthrough comes when you realize that their disapproval, though uncomfortable, is insignificant compared to the clarity and strength you're developing within. What Machiavelli understood with profound insight was that most people are driven by necessity, not by choice. They react to circumstances rather than creating them. They follow paths of least resistance rather than carving their own. And most critically, they remain tethered to the opinions of others, unable to break free from this invisible prison. The watershed moment in your journey arrives when you consciously break your dependency on others' approval. This liberation doesn't happen overnight. It's a gradual process of recognizing how deeply this need for validation has shaped your decisions, then systematically dismantling it. Each time you choose your truth over others' expectations, you loosen these chains. Each time you pursue what you know is right despite criticism, you reclaim a piece of your sovereignty. This freedom from external validation isn't just psychological. It's practical. When you no longer orient your life around winning approval, you gain access to opportunities, perspectives, and decisions that were previously invisible to you. Options that seemed impossible suddenly become available. Paths that seemed closed suddenly open. Your entire decision-making framework transforms. Now, I want to go even deeper into what happens during those periods of strategic withdrawal, because here lies perhaps the most challenging battlefield you'll ever face. In isolation, stripped of distractions, and the constant noise of others' opinions, you finally confront your most formidable opponent, yourself. This internal confrontation is where the real work begins. Face to face with your own laziness, there's no one else to blame for your lack of progress. Eye to eye with your fears, there's nowhere to hide from your own limitations. Staring directly at your excuses, their flimsy nature becomes impossible to ignore. This battlefield is unforgiving precisely because it's honest. There are no politics here, no social niceties, no convenient distractions. Just you and the truth of who you are in this moment. Most people instinctively avoid this confrontation their entire lives. They fill every waking moment with noise, activity, and social interactions specifically to escape it. They fear what they might discover if forced to spend too much time alone with their thoughts. Yet this avoidance is precisely what keeps them trapped in patterns of mediocrity, never achieving the breakthrough that comes only through this internal reckoning. Write in the comments, "I face myself without flinching," if you're ready to confront this ultimate opponent and begin the real work of transformation. This internal confrontation reveals another dimension of self-focus that few understand. Once you've done this work, you become something society finds inherently dangerous. The person who embraces complete self-focus develops a quality that unsettles others, though they may not be able to articulate exactly why. You become dangerous not because you're aggressive or threatening, but because you no longer need what most desperately crave: external validation. This independence creates an imbalance in every interaction. While others remain tethered to approval, seeking constant reassurance that they're good enough, smart enough, worthy enough, you operate from a different foundation entirely. Your decisions aren't calibrated to win praise. Your words aren't filtered to avoid criticism. Your actions aren't designed to impress. This freedom makes you unpredictable in a world where most people's behaviors follow predictable patterns of validation seeking. Think about how differently you move through life when approval is no longer your currency. Opportunities others would avoid for fear of judgment become available to you. Risks others would shun for fear of failure become calculated options. Truths others would suppress for fear of rejection become your standard. You build in silence while others announce their every intention, seeking validation before they've earned results. This leads to one of the most powerful yet understated aspects of self-focus, the aura of mystery it naturally creates. When you disappear into your discipline, when you withdraw from the constant social performance most engage in, people notice. They wonder where you've gone, what you're building, what you're becoming. Human psychology is predictable in this regard. We're intensely curious about what we can't immediately access or understand. Your transformation becomes intriguing precisely because it happens largely out of sight. While others document their journey in real time, constantly seeking feedback and approval, you're engaged in the deeper work that doesn't translate well to public consumption. This creates a magnetic pull. The less you reveal, the more others want to know. The less you seek attention, the more attention naturally flows toward you. This strategic withdrawal isn't about social manipulation. It's about creating the space necessary for genuine transformation. Like a snake that hides before striking or a general who retreats before conquering, stepping back is preparation for forward movement. History's most effective leaders understood this rhythm: withdrawal, preparation, emergence, dominance. They recognized that visible retreat is often the prelude to invisible progress. The journey of self-mastery continues beyond this video. Subscribe to receive insights on turning weakness into strength and building unshakable personal power. Don't just watch, become part of this transformation. Consider how this pattern manifests across domains. The writer who disappears for months returns with work of unexpected depth. The entrepreneur who goes quiet emerges with an innovation that changes the market. The athlete who trains in isolation returns with capabilities others can't match. What looked like absence was actually intensive presence, just directed inward rather than outward. This strategic withdrawal serves another crucial purpose. It prevents you from revealing your evolution before it's complete. Most people sabotage their growth by exposing it prematurely, seeking validation for half-formed ideas and partial transformations. They announce their intentions before they've developed the capacity to fulfill them. By contrast, the discipline of building in silence protects your emerging strength until it's ready to be wielded effectively. Write in the comments, "I build in silence," if you recognize the power of strategic withdrawal in your own journey of transformation. This strategic withdrawal creates the space for what might be called the alchemy of self-focus, the transformative process where weaknesses become strengths. There's a stark contrast in how different people approach their flaws. The weak hide from them, burying them beneath layers of denial and distraction. They expend enormous energy constructing elaborate defenses to ensure these flaws remain invisible to others and often to themselves. But those who understand true power take the opposite approach. They hunt their weaknesses deliberately, studying them with cold objectivity. They dissect them, understand their mechanics, and then systematically transform them into assets. This isn't positive thinking or self-help platitudes. It's strategic metamorphosis, turning liabilities into weapons that serve your greater purpose. Machiavelli grasped this principle with remarkable clarity. He observed that those who deny their weaknesses are inevitably ruled by them. The flaw you refuse to acknowledge becomes the very thing that controls you from the shadows. It dictates your decisions without your awareness. It limits your options without your consent. It sabotages your progress without your recognition. The revelation comes when you flip this dynamic entirely. By embracing and confronting your weaknesses directly, you transform them from hidden vulnerabilities into unexpected sources of power. Consider how this operates in practice. The person with social anxiety who faces it directly doesn't just overcome it. They often develop exceptional observation skills and emotional intelligence that others lack. The individual who struggles with perfectionism doesn't just manage it, they channel it into unmatched attention to detail and quality standards. This alchemy extends even to our most primal emotions. Take fear, particularly the fear of failure that paralyzes so many. This emotion can manifest in two entirely different ways, depending on how you relate to it. For most, fear becomes a limitation, a reason to retreat, a justification for playing small. It destroys potential before it can manifest. But for those who understand the hidden mechanics of power, fear becomes preparation fuel. The same emotion that cripples others drives you to prepare more thoroughly, to anticipate more contingencies, to develop more capabilities than anyone else in the room. What determines whether fear destroys or empowers isn't the fear itself, it's your relationship to it. Do you allow it to control you, or do you harness it as energy for your journey? Behind every extraordinary achievement lies this fundamental truth. Greatness rarely emerges from natural talent alone. It comes from people who transformed their greatest weaknesses into their most distinctive strengths. History's most effective leaders weren't those born without flaws, but those who mastered the art of transmuting their flaws into power. This principle reveals the blueprint for your own transformation. The aspects of yourself you've been running from, the traits you've been hiding, the tendencies you've been fighting, may contain the very raw materials for your greatest strengths. Your journey isn't about becoming flawless, but about turning your flaws into the foundation of your power. Write in the comments, "I transform my weaknesses," if you're beginning to see how your greatest vulnerabilities might contain the seeds of your unique strengths. This transformation extends beyond mere habits or skills. It reaches into the emotional realm, where perhaps the most powerful alchemy takes place. Consider the intense emotions that most people experience as burdens: anger, shame, loss, betrayal. These emotional forces can either become chains that bind you to the past or tools that propel you into a more powerful future. The decisive factor isn't the emotion itself, but your relationship to it. Most people run from difficult emotions, suppressing them, avoiding their triggers, medicating them away. They view these feelings as unwelcome invaders to be eliminated. But this avoidance creates a shadow self, parts of you that remain unintegrated, unmastered, and therefore dangerous. These repressed emotions don't disappear, they simply go underground, influencing your decisions from the shadows. The revelation comes when you stop running and instead turn toward these challenging emotions with curiosity and purpose. Anger, when properly channeled, becomes determination that pushes you through barriers. Shame, when fully processed, becomes humility and self-awareness. Loss, when truly integrated, becomes perspective and appreciation. Betrayal, when metabolized, becomes discernment and wisdom. This emotional alchemy doesn't happen automatically. It requires the courage to feel fully while maintaining enough awareness to direct these powerful energies toward constructive ends. The Japanese concept of kintsukuroi, repairing broken pottery with gold, offers a beautiful metaphor for this process. The breaks aren't hidden, they're highlighted, becoming the most distinctive and valuable part of the object. Now, I want to go even deeper into the mechanics of this transformation, because here lies a fundamental insight about weakness. Most people build elaborate defenses around their vulnerabilities, creating walls of denial, rationalization, and avoidance. They become experts at hiding their flaws from others and often from themselves. But these defensive walls have a fatal flaw. They shatter completely under sufficient pressure. Before you continue building your internal fortress, leave a like on this video. It helps these uncommon truths reach others who, like you, are ready to transform themselves through disciplined self-focus. The alternative approach is counterintuitive yet far more effective. Deliberately expose your weaknesses to yourself. Study them with unflinching honesty. Dissect their origins, their patterns, their triggers. This voluntary vulnerability allows you to rebuild these weak points systematically, transforming them from liabilities into assets. What you willingly face loses its power to control you. What you deliberately examine becomes something you can reshape. This principle reveals the hidden mechanism behind life's most fundamental law. The world crushes those who don't transmute their pain into power. Look around, and you'll see evidence everywhere. People broken by experiences that others have used as catalysts for growth. The difference isn't in what happened to them, but in how they processed and redirected those experiences. When you fully embrace this alchemy, something remarkable happens. Attacks intended to break you become gifts for growth. The criticism meant to diminish you provides exactly the feedback you need to improve. The rejection designed to discourage you frees you from dependencies that would have limited your path. The failure intended to defeat you reveals precisely where your approach needs refinement. This weaponization of perceived weakness doesn't mean you never feel pain. Rather, it means you've developed the capacity to extract value from painful experiences, to mine them for insights, to use them as fuel for your evolution. What breaks others merely tempers you, like steel strengthened through fire. Write in the comments, "I turn pain into power," if you're beginning to recognize how your most challenging experiences might be transformed into your greatest advantages. This brings us to what might be called the ruthless law of control, perhaps the most fundamental principle governing all aspects of power and influence. It can be stated simply, control yourself or be controlled. This isn't philosophy or theory. It's a natural law as reliable as gravity. In every domain of life, those who lack internal discipline inevitably fall under the control of external forces. This principle operates at every scale. In your personal life, the inability to control your impulses puts you at the mercy of corporations that profit from your consumption. In your professional life, the inability to control your attention makes you vulnerable to whoever designs the most compelling distractions. In your relationships, the inability to control your emotions hands power directly to those who know how to trigger you. Now, I want to go even deeper into the historical pattern this creates. Study any fallen empire, any dethroned king, any collapsed organization, and you'll discover a revealing truth. External defeat was merely the visible manifestation of an internal collapse that had already occurred. Rome wasn't destroyed by barbarians. It had already been hollowed out by internal corruption, complacency, and moral decay. The external invasion merely confirmed what had already happened internally. This pattern repeats endlessly throughout history. Leaders don't fall because of external threats, but because of internal weakness, desires without discipline, ambition without restraint, emotions without control. The outer world simply responds to what has already deteriorated within. This reveals a profound insight about power. Your internal state precedes and determines your external reality. The chaos or order within you eventually manifests as chaos or order around you. The practical application of this insight transforms how you approach every aspect of life. Consider how easily emotions can be weaponized against someone who lacks self-control. The person who cannot manage their anger becomes a puppet to anyone who knows how to provoke them. One carefully placed insult, one strategic challenge, and they're instantly dancing to someone else's tune, reacting exactly as predicted, sacrificing their power in a moment of uncontrolled emotion. This vulnerability extends to every unmastered state. The individual who cannot control their desire for validation will compromise their values for approval. The one who cannot control their fear will avoid necessary risks and opportunities. The one who cannot control their need for comfort will never develop the resilience required for meaningful achievement. Self-control isn't about suppression or denial. It's about conscious direction. It's the difference between a river flooding destructively and the same water channeled through a hydroelectric dam to generate power. The emotion itself isn't the problem. The lack of disciplined direction is. When you develop this internal governance, you become significantly harder to manipulate, predict, or control. This mastery creates a decision-making clarity that few experience. Most people's choices emerge from a chaotic mixture of impulses, social pressures, and unconscious patterns. But when you've established internal control, your decisions flow from a centered place of purpose and clarity. You become the author of your life rather than a character in someone else's story. Write in the comments, "I control myself to control my destiny," if you recognize how developing greater self-mastery might transform your capacity to shape the circumstances of your life. This internal governance manifests in what might be called the invisible crown of control, a quality that naturally draws others toward you without conscious effort. People are instinctively attracted to those who cannot be easily shaken, who maintain composure under pressure, who embody stability in a chaotic world. This isn't manipulation or charisma in the conventional sense. It's something deeper, more primal, more authentic. Consider your own experience. When faced with uncertainty or crisis, who do you naturally turn to? Not the loudest person in the room, not the one with the most impressive title. You seek out the individual who radiates calm certainty, who seems unaffected by the surrounding turbulence. This gravitational pull toward composed individuals reflects a universal human need for stability. In the presence of someone who has mastered themselves, others feel a sense of safety and certainty that satisfies a deep psychological hunger. The revelation here is that leadership, true leadership, not mere authority, emerges organically from self-mastery. You don't need to demand followers when your very presence invites them. You don't need to assert control over others when your control over yourself is evident in every interaction. The crown is invisible yet unmistakable to those around you. Now, I want to go even deeper into the nature of power itself, because here lies a profound paradox. The highest form of power isn't loud, demanding, or conspicuous. It doesn't announce itself or seek validation. The highest form of power is silent yet undeniable, a presence that bends the room without words. This quality of dominance radiates naturally from someone who has achieved complete self-rule, whose internal kingdom is so well governed that nothing external can disturb their sovereignty. Machiavelli recognized this truth centuries ago. The prince who truly commands respect isn't the one who constantly reminds others of his title or threatens consequences for disobedience. Real authority emanates from within, from discipline so thorough, so complete, that it transforms into an aura others can sense without fully understanding why they respond to it. This silent dominance creates a fascinating dynamic. When you enter a room, having done the internal work, having built the fortress within yourself, people feel your presence before you've said a word. Conversations pause momentarily. Attention shifts subtly in your direction. These micro-responses aren't coincidental. They're the natural recognition of a power that doesn't need to announce itself to be felt. Most people fundamentally misunderstand this dynamic. They attempt to command respect through external demonstrations, raising their voice, flaunting credentials, demanding recognition. But forced respect isn't respect at all. It's compliance, and compliance evaporates the moment the force is removed. This approach fails because it violates a basic psychological truth. Respect cannot be demanded. It can only be earned or inspired. Real power isn't asked for, but projected through discipline so ruthless that others cannot ignore it. It manifests in how you carry yourself, how you speak, how you maintain composure while others crumble. When your internal mastery becomes visible through your consistent actions, people don't respect you because they must. They respect you because they cannot help themselves. Something in them recognizes the uncommon sovereignty you've established within. Write in the comments, "I command without demanding," if you've experienced moments where your calm presence naturally influenced a situation without the need for force or insistence. This dynamic reveals another dimension of power that Machiavelli understood with remarkable clarity. Power is indeed a performance, but not in the way most assume. It's not fake or inauthentic, rather it's discipline forged into perception. Your internal mastery becomes visible through consistent, external expression. Machiavelli observed that people judge more by what they see than by what they feel. Appearances often matter more than underlying realities in how others assess your strength and capability. This insight isn't an invitation to deception, but a recognition of human psychology. When you've done the internal work, the external manifestation becomes not a mask, but a revelation of who you've become. Your composed presence isn't pretense, it's the visible expression of an invisible transformation. The disciplined mind naturally creates a disciplined appearance, and that appearance communicates your internal state to others before you've spoken a word. The revelation here is that this presence can be systematically developed through attention to what might seem like insignificant details. Your posture, your eye contact, your tone of voice, these subtle elements combine to create a powerful impression that others respond to unconsciously. The person who has trained their body to project calm in the midst of chaos, who has disciplined their voice to speak with weight instead of desperation, who has mastered the art of deliberate movement, this person commands attention not through force, but through presence. Now, I want to go even deeper into the mechanics of this transformation, because here lies a counterintuitive truth about power. Most believe power comes from accumulation, more money, more status, more influence, more connections, but the highest form of power comes from precisely the opposite direction. It emerges from needing less, not having more. Consider this paradigm shift. When you need nothing from anyone, no validation, no approval, no support, you become virtually invincible in any interaction. They cannot bribe you with praise because you don't hunger for it. They cannot manipulate you with rejection because you don't fear it. They cannot control you with opportunities because you don't depend on them. This detachment isn't coldness, it's liberation, a freedom that few ever experience. This revelation transforms every relationship in your life. In negotiations, the person who can walk away holds the power. In conflicts, the one who remains unaffected by provocations maintains control. In leadership, those who don't need the position to validate their worth make the most effective leaders. Each of these scenarios illustrates the same fundamental principle. Your power increases in direct proportion to your freedom from external dependencies. The journey toward this detachment begins with honest self-assessment. What external validations are you still dependent on? Whose approval still matters too much? What possessions or positions have you made essential to your sense of self? Each of these dependencies represents a potential point of control that others can exploit. As you systematically reduce these needs, you simultaneously increase your freedom and your power. This isn't about becoming cold or disconnected from others. Rather, it's about establishing such a solid internal foundation that your connections become choices rather than necessities. You engage with others from a place of genuine strength rather than hidden need. Your relationships become healthier precisely because they're no longer burdened with your unconscious demands for validation or reassurance. Write in the comments, "I need less to become more," if you're beginning to recognize how reducing your external dependencies might paradoxically increase your personal power. This foundation of detachment creates the perfect conditions for what might be the most underappreciated strategy of power: patience. In a world obsessed with immediate results, constant action and perpetual motion, the disciplined practice of strategic patience becomes a rare and devastating advantage. The world ultimately belongs to those who wait with the cold calculation of a predator, who understand that timing is everything. Machiavelli recognized this truth centuries ago when observing that fortune favors those who know not just when to act, but more importantly, when not to. This insight runs counter to most modern productivity advice, which emphasizes constant movement, hustle culture, and never-ending action. But look closely at history's most effective leaders, most successful strategists, most transformative figures. They all mastered the art of waiting for the perfect moment. Consider the chess master who doesn't rush to attack, but builds pressure piece by piece, move by move, until the opponent suffocates under the weight of a carefully constructed position. Only then, at precisely the right moment, does he deliver the decisive strike that ends the game. This patient approach reflects a profound understanding of power dynamics that most never grasp. Now, I want to go even deeper into the psychology that makes patience so difficult yet so rewarding. Most people have become slaves to a sense of urgency, believing that every moment requires immediate action. This mindset isn't natural. It's conditioned by a culture that equates busyness with importance and constant activity with progress. But this impatience carries a hidden cost. It forces you to act before conditions are optimal, before your preparation is complete, before your opponent has made the crucial mistake that would ensure your success. This self-sabotaging urgency manifests in countless ways. The entrepreneur who launches before proper testing, the investor who buys before thorough research, the speaker who responds before fully listening. In each case, the premature action undermines what could have been a far more effective result had patience been exercised. Behind every failed venture, every regrettable decision, every missed opportunity often lies this same fundamental error: acting too soon. The most fascinating aspect of self-focused power is that it creates a capacity for patience few others possess. When you're not dependent on external validation, you can wait without the anxiety that drives premature action. When you've built your internal fortress, you can observe chaos unfolding without being pulled into it. Your detachment becomes the foundation for strategic patience that looks like supernatural restraint to others. This patience transforms not just when you act, but the quality of your action when you finally move. The self-focused individual becomes feared not because they move often, but because when they do, their strike is devastating, built in silence, executed with precision, and timed for maximum impact. Like the predator who waits motionless for the perfect moment, your patience allows you to conserve energy while others exhaust themselves in fruitless activity. Write in the comments, "I strike with precision," if you recognize the power of patient, deliberate action over constant, unfocused movement. This precision approach reflects what might be called the ultimate expression of self-focus, the creation of an internal fortress. True power isn't found in external trappings that can be stolen or destroyed. It exists as an impenetrable inner citadel built of discipline, patience, silence, and self-control. Unlike wealth, status, or position, qualities that can be taken from you in an instant, this internal fortress becomes an unassailable source of strength that no external force can breach. Machiavelli observed that rulers who relied solely on external defenses inevitably fell when those defenses were overcome. The same principle applies to personal power. If your strength exists only in your title, your possessions, your connections, or your appearance, you remain perpetually vulnerable. One shift in circumstance can strip away everything you've built. But the fortress within cannot be stolen, cannot be destroyed, cannot be diminished by changing conditions. This internal fortress isn't built overnight. Each time you choose discipline over comfort, you add a brick. Each time you maintain silence when others would speak impulsively, you strengthen the walls. Each time You master an emotion that would have previously controlled you. You raise the gate higher. Day by day, choice by choice, this fortress takes shape until one day you realize you've become untouchable in a way few ever experience. Now, I want to go even deeper into the relationship between this internal reality and how others perceive you, because here lies one of Machiavelli's most profound insights. Power isn't always about objective truth, but about perception. Those who understand how to control how others see them gain the ability to shape decisions and exert influence without the need for force or coercion. This isn't about deception, but strategic revelation, choosing deliberately what aspects of yourself to display and what to conceal. Like a general who shows his army's strength while hiding his supply lines, you reveal enough to establish your power while maintaining the mystery that makes you unpredictable. This calculated approach to perception becomes an invisible blade that cuts through resistance without the need for visible conflict. The revelation here is that perception often outweighs reality in human interactions. A person who appears confident is assumed to be competent. Someone who remains calm in crisis is presumed to be in control. These assumptions create a reality of their own, shaping how others respond to you and what opportunities become available. By mastering the art of perception, you don't need to prove your power. Others simply assume it, exists, and act accordingly. But perhaps the most crucial element of maintaining power in an ever-changing world is adaptability, the capacity for constant reinvention. The person who refuses to evolve, who clings to a single identity or approach, is already finished before they realize it. True power belongs to those who can shed their skin when necessary, who transform themselves to meet new challenges, who remain fluid while others become rigid. Like water that takes the shape of whatever contains it while maintaining its essential nature, you must learn to adapt without losing your core strength. This constant reinvention makes you inherently unpredictable, a quality that creates natural advantage in any competitive environment. While others can be studied and anticipated, your capacity for transformation keeps them perpetually off balance, responding to who you were rather than who you've become. Write in the comments, "I am untouchable," if you're ready to begin building the internal fortress that will transform you into someone whose power comes not from external sources, but from unshakable self-mastery. All of these principles we've explored together form not just a philosophy, but a path, a practical journey toward becoming someone who commands themselves completely, and as a result, commands their world. This transformation isn't instant, but it is inevitable for those who commit to the daily practice of self-focus. What I've shared with you today isn't theory. It's the hidden mechanics of power that have shaped history's most influential figures. The question now isn't whether these principles work, but whether you'll apply them consistently enough to experience their full effect in your own life. If this perspective has shifted something in you, if you feel that pull toward a more disciplined, more focused version of yourself, take a moment to like this video. That simple action helps these ideas reach others who might be searching for this same understanding. For those of you who've traveled this entire journey with me today, write in the comments, "I am the untouchable," not as boasting, but as a commitment to the path of self-mastery we've explored together. Your comment becomes a declaration of intent, a line drawn between who you were and who you're becoming. The channel exists to provide these insights that most won't share, the unvarnished truths about power, influence, and self-mastery that can transform your position in the world. Subscribe to continue this journey together as we explore the deeper principles that govern success and authority. There's a video right here that builds directly on what we've discussed today, exploring how to apply these principles of self-focus in specific situations where others are actively trying to undermine your power. Click and continue with me there as we take these concepts from understanding to implementation. Remember, The fortress isn't built in a day, but brick by brick. Choice by choice, moment by moment, the journey continues.